Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we've got a really unique set of sources, excerpts from personal letters. It looks like we're going to be unraveling a mystery.
Yeah, one intriguing detail at a time.
Exactly.
It's like we're stepping right into someone's life,
Mm.
experiencing these events as they unfold through their own words.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's George Slade Methuen. And his letters start with a hunting trip in the wilds of Scandinavia.
Hunting elk in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It's both beautiful and intense.
Mm.
He describes navigating a landscape of dense rock formations, swamps, rivers swollen from rain. It's during this really challenging journey that Methuen has this chance encounter that sets the entire mystery in motion.
So we're not just dropped into any random scene.
Right.
We're in a setting that already feels significant.
Absolutely.
Is this encounter with a person?
It is.
Hmm.
After successfully hunting an enormous elk, Methuen mentions it's 17 hands high. Just to emphasize the size, they arrive at this secluded lake. And there, they find a stranger described as having this rugged seafaring look, which seems out of place in the Scandinavian wilderness.
Methuen is already emphasizing size and contrasting appearances.
Right.
You're right. This definitely feels significant. What can you tell us about this stranger?
Well, the stranger turns out to be Cospatrick, someone Methuen knew back in their Cambridge days. But Cospatrick has clearly undergone a dramatic transformation. He's gone from scholar to this hardened adventurer, complete with a collection of tattoos.
Those tattoos, I have to admit, have me curious.
Yeah.
Do Methuen's letters provide any insights into Cospatrick's past? Or what might have caused such a drastic change?
They do. Cospatrick was known for his intelligence, but also for his kind of unconventional interests. Methuen explains that he was expelled from Cambridge for a relatively minor offense, and it seems like that expulsion was like a turning point in his life.
That's fascinating how a seemingly minor event can send someone on a completely different path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the path Cospatrick is on now appears to involve diamonds. He's partnered with a man named Hyne, and they're both in need of money. And their plan is to acquire diamonds.
Okay.
And for some reason, they need Methuen's expertise.
Diamonds? In Scandinavia? I have to admit, I didn't see that coming.
The diamonds aren't in Scandinavia. It seems Cospatrick's plan revolves around a journey to Minorca, a Spanish island in the Mediterranean Sea.
Oh, wow.
That's where the real treasure hunt begins.
So even though the encounter happens in this remote, almost symbolic Scandinavian setting,
Yeah.
it's actually launching them on a quest to a completely different part of the world.
Exactly. And that journey to Minorca is just the first step in what promises to be a much more intricate story.
All right, well, I'm already hooked. This sounds like a mystery with layers upon layers, and I'm eager to unpack what happens next. I'm already picturing sunny beaches and sparkling water.
Yeah.
Quite a change from the Scandinavian wilderness we were just discussing.
From what Methuen describes, it's much more than just picturesque scenery. Minorca has this unique history, a blend of different cultures that have left their mark on the island.
So it's a place with layers,
Exactly.
both literally and figuratively.
Exactly. And those layers seem to be at the heart of the mystery unfolding in Methuen's letters. He describes arriving in the port town of Hyne, which sounds vibrant and bustling, full of life.
Okay.
And it's there he encounters someone who adds a whole new dimension to the story.
Okay.
A charismatic anarchist named Talteval.
Anarchists and diamonds, that's not a connection you hear about every day. I'm already intrigued.
Talteval is definitely a fascinating character. From what Methuen writes, Talteval believes that the way to disrupt the existing social order, to create a truly classless society, is to devalue diamonds.
So it's not about personal wealth or greed for Talteval.
Right.
It's about using diamonds as a tool for social change.
Yes. It's a very radical approach. He sees manufactured diamonds as a way to dismantle the power structures that are tied to the value of natural diamonds.
Wow.
This is where things get really interesting, because Talteval's pursuit of the diamond recipe is intertwined with the ambitions of Cospatrick and Hyne.
So we have this clash of ideologies, of
Yeah.
motivations.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have the more traditional treasure seekers,
Right?
driven by financial gain. And then you have Talteval, with his grand vision of societal upheaval.
It's almost Shakespearean, isn't it? This convergence of different desires, all centered around this elusive diamond recipe. And the recipe itself is tied to another fascinating layer, Minorcan history.
I'm guessing this is where those talayots come in.
Yes.
Those ancient stone structures you mentioned earlier.
You're right on the mark.
Mm-hmm.
Methuen, guided by clues from the writings of Raymond Lully, a medieval scholar who is known for his work in alchemy and philosophy, believes the recipe is hidden within one of these talayots.
Okay, so now it's not just a treasure hunt, but a historical puzzle as well. I can see why you said Minorca has layers.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about Raymond Lully?
He's quite a figure. Lully was a prolific writer and thinker, and his work often explored the intersection of faith, reason, and the natural world. It seems Methuen had studied Lully's work, and he's using it to decipher the clues that lead to the diamond recipe.
I love how these details are coming together, how we're getting glimpses into history, philosophy, and adventure, all within this one mystery.
And the stakes get even higher. Because Methuen and his companions aren't the only ones searching for the recipe.
Uh-oh.
They encounter another individual.
Yeah.
A man named Weems, who is also on the trail of the diamonds.
I can only imagine the tension in that moment.
Yeah.
Two groups, each driven by their own desires,
Right.
converging on this ancient site. It sounds like something straight out of an adventure novel.
The excerpts we have certainly paint a vivid picture, and things take an unexpected turn. When, despite finding a stash of diamonds within the talayot, the recipe itself is stolen.
Stolen by whom?
A blind man named Pether.
A blind man. That seems almost impossible.
Methuen's letters suggest that Pether's blindness might be deceiving, that he's far more capable than he initially appears. There are clues throughout the letters that point to Pether's involvement, to his meticulous planning. It even seems he was observing Methuen back in Genoa long before they ever arrived in Minorca.
This Pether is quite a character. He's introduced as someone who is seemingly vulnerable, and yet he's the one who manages to outmaneuver everyone.
It really makes you question assumptions, doesn't it? And with the recipe stolen, Methuen, Hay, and even Talteval find themselves in hot pursuit, chasing Pether across the island of Majorca.
I'm on the edge of my seat. This sounds like a chase full of close calls and narrow escapes. Does Methuen manage to catch up with Pether?
He does, and it leads to a confrontation that none of them could have anticipated.
So they finally caught up to Pether, this blind man who seems to be orchestrating everything.
Yeah.
What happens next?
The confrontation is quite dramatic. You can almost feel the tension and anticipation in Methuen's writing as they finally corner Pether. But what's truly surprising is Pether's reaction. Instead of bargaining or trying to escape, he destroys the diamond recipe.
He destroys it after all of this,
Yeah.
after everyone has gone to such lengths to find it.
He burns it
Wow.
right in front of them. Imagine the shock and disbelief. Methuen describes Talteval as being absolutely enraged. This recipe was the key to his vision of a classless society, and now it's gone.
It's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah.
Everyone driven by their own desires, and it all culminates in this act of destruction.
Right.
What about Cospatrick and Hyne? How do they react?
Methuen's letters mostly focus on Talteval's fury. It seems things might have turned violent if not for the intervention of Mrs. Cromwell, a woman Methuen befriended earlier in his travels.
Mrs. Cromwell, the one with the interest in tattoos and pottery.
Right.
She's popped up a few times now.
Yes. Her role in the story is subtle, but significant. Methuen describes her as a calming presence, and her intervention prevents the situation from escalating further.
It's interesting how this character, who initially seemed like a side note, keeps reappearing at these pivotal moments, almost as if she represents a force of balance in this chaotic situation.
I agree. It's almost as if Methuen is drawn to her, perhaps sensing that she represents a different perspective on the events unfolding around him.
So what happens in the aftermath? What does Methuen do after the recipe is destroyed?
Peter manages to escape, and Methuen is left grappling with this whirlwind of emotions. He reflects on his journey, on the motivations of those he's encountered, and on the ultimate futility of their pursuit. He even contemplates the role of fate and chance in shaping the course of their adventure.
The excerpts we've explored have been such a captivating blend of history, philosophy, and adventure. We've encountered characters with wildly different motivations. Cospatrick with his cynicism towards wealth, Talteval driven by his utopian ideals, and Pether, whose actions remain shrouded in mystery.
And at the heart of it all, this question lingers. Could Talteval's plan to flood the world with manufactured diamonds have actually worked? Would it have truly led to a classless society, or would it have simply created new forms of imbalance?
It's a question that goes beyond this particular tale, prompting us to consider the complexities of social change and the unintended consequences of disrupting established systems. This deep dive has truly lived up to its name, taking us deep into a story that's full of twists and turns, challenging assumptions, and sparking all kinds of questions.
And what's fascinating is that Methuen letters don't offer easy answers. They leave us with a sense of ambiguity, a recognition that even in seemingly straightforward pursuits, like a treasure hunt, there are layers of complexity, conflicting motivations, and ultimately the enduring mystery of human nature.
Thank you for joining us on this fascinating exploration. We hope this deep dive into George Slade Methuen's letters has left you with as many questions as answers, prompting you to consider the forces that shape our lives and the enduring power of stories to illuminate the human condition.